Welcome, everybody. Whenever I come to a room like this, I like to look around and kind of see who I know, who I've spoken to before, and kind of get an idea of who I'm speaking to. Most people who do know me know that I don't generally have any plan when I come up on stage, and I generally just like to just riff and talk. And especially in intimate groups like this, it's really good to get a sense after I leave that the questions from people were answered, and I was able to talk to a diverse group of people that have different knowledge about blockchain, different knowledge of technology. So I do generally like to, when I see a group of people, like in the far back corner there, I see colleagues that I've worked with for years. I see a number of other people here that I know are in the blockchain space and have been in the blockchain space for a number of years, but I think there's probably a lot of new people, a lot of people from different ranges. So I do like to get an idea of who I'm speaking to and what you want to get out of this talk. How many of you are going to be at the Futurist event tomorrow? So pretty much everybody, and I'm also opening Keynote that too. So it's good to do something a little bit different here. So maybe you can start off by giving me a hand here and saying, what would you like to get out of this event that you're at today? Is it particularly tied to cloud computing, or is it just more tied to gaining knowledge on blockchain? Who would like to go first? Come on, usually the first one is the hardest, and after that people usually crack it. Yes?
Cloud.
What about cloud? What do you want? Cloud and blockchain, cloud and what's... How cloud and blockchain? Are you in the cloud space? What are you in? Right. You're in the blockchain space. Okay.
I'm not in the blockchain space.
Okay.
I have a functional project that will launch without blockchain. But
You want to see if whether blockchain might be useful for you down the road.
I'm looking at a particular player who will swallow me if I use an IPO.
Yeah.
Looking at how an ICO can protect me from the elephant in the corner that's going to want to stop me and give me a way to protect
Interesting.
and start a project.
And what's your knowledge of blockchain? Like, are you pretty new to it?
I'm beginning to understand it.
Okay, all right. So I'll talk today. I'm going to try to demystify and break it down for those that don't understand it right now. And I'm sure there's a lot of you that can say, I don't fully grasp what it is. I hear a lot about it, but I'm really not sure how it's going to apply to my job or apply to the sector that I'm in. Yes?
Looking at blockchain, looking at education and marketing around it, and looking at influencers and looking at how we can really take marketing of how blockchains are being sent out now and take it to the next level, make it a lot more highly rated, a lot more engageable.
Yeah, and education is a huge thing right there. That's one of the three tenets that I kind of go on are inform, empower, and unite. Those are the three things that with my company, and the three things that I try to do. And the inform part, the first part is really the education and informing people and letting them know what's happening and how it's going to be changing. These things will change their lives. And it's very difficult to get information on blockchain in a way that's digestible that the masses can understand. I still don't have a place that I can direct people to say, go to that site to learn about what's going on here. There's a lot of stuff on Bitcoin, there's stuff on Ethereum. Most of the Ethereum stuff is for developers. It's hard to really get into it and understand what's happening there. And so the education part is a major thing that we've got some projects that I've been working on, and that we will be working on, that's really breaking it down on not just on Bitcoin, not just on Ethereum or blockchain, but how is this whole new revolution going to impact every single sector out there, and how do we do it in a way that my dad is able to go somewhere and actually learn what's going on, because it's really difficult. There's so much noise out there. There's so many projects out there that have very little value, but it's hard for the average person to distinguish what has value and what doesn't. And you have people with the opportunity to now put capital into projects, anybody, the masses, and it's very difficult to distinguish and wade through all the noise and the garbage that's out there. And most of it is noise and most of it is garbage. But it's super difficult. What are some of the things you guys want to get out? Yes?
I want to know about blockchain and how AI is going to be playing out.
Okay, that's something I can touch on later. Sure. Okay, and then I want to get an idea, or how many of you are in the cloud space right now? So, not too many. Interesting. Okay. Anybody else want something you guys want to get out of today before I get going with things? Yes,
Can you talk about Jackson's roadmap and Liberty and
Sure.
where you're going with that platform?
definitely. Okay, and how much time do I have? I know we started a bit late. Anybody know how much, when I can go till?
Yeah, it's okay, just, yeah, you've got at least 30 minutes.
Pardon me?
At least 30 minutes.
That's 30, okay, so it's, okay. I generally like to get a little history or a little background of myself. So I've been a technologist all my life. I was born in 75. 8 years old, I was starting to build computers. I was at robotics camps, a little north of the city at Seneca College. I was always a computer person growing up, and I grew up at the dawn of the personal computer. So in the early 80s, that's when I got my first IBM PC Junior. My dad bought it in 1983, I think it was, and I was hooked. To me, growing up, I had a couple things I liked to do. One was sports. I played hockey, I played soccer growing up, but computers and being at home on my computers was what I loved to do. I didn't like school. I didn't like to be told what to do, and I just, for me, every waking moment I wanted to do was spending on my computer. So the first decade of my life was personal computers, and I really got to see the democratization of computing power and the ability for the individual to have something in their home that could do the things that were only available prior in universities or big mainframe systems. So the first decade for me was really witnessing the dawn of the personal computer and the power of computational power in the hands of the individual. The second decade of my life, in the 80s, near the late 80s, was communicating via modems. So before the internet, there were modems out there that would communicate things called BBS boards, bulletin board systems, where you could connect from one computer to another, and you'd hear those weird noises, and it would take you 10 minutes to download an image, but that's was enthralling to me, and the ability to connect to another person's computer and be able to see what he wanted me to see or a particular interest, and that was just something that I did quite frequently. And then in the early 90s, when the internet came about, I remember seeing the browser for the first time. It was a Mosaic browser, so most people will recognize Netscape as like one of the very first browsers out there. But Mosaic, I was at the Ryerson computer lab, and I saw that browser, and it's one of those things I just got right away. A lot of times with technology, it takes a little bit of time to understand it and get into it. And because of my background in computers, my background in communications with modems, it was like, wow, now the opportunity for me to, and for others, to democratize information and have information flow globally, instantly, very quickly, very cheaply. This is going to have major impact on a lot of different industries. And I recognized that right away. My first business I ever did was developing websites in the early 90s with HTML1 and doing graphic design, and saw that this was a future that I wanted to be involved in, and saw how important it would be to the changing sectors of postal services, anything with moving information, of publications, all these things that this was going to enable, now that an individual can send information across borders anytime they want at a very low cost. At that time, though, I was still quite young, never liked school, ended up going to Ryerson for business. My dad was an entrepreneur, but wasn't really at the maturity level to be able to appreciate what I could learn from there. And I really coasted through university and got a degree in commerce, a marketing major, business, international business minor, but really wasn't, I didn't have an entrepreneurial drive at that time. And I went into business because I was already in the computer realm, really. I didn't want to get into that space. I never wanted to be a developer or a coder. Just like I say, I like to cook, but I never wanted to be a chef. I knew computers. I was always a computer person in the family, but I didn't want to get into development, and I thought business would be the way for me to go. But even taking that at school, it really wasn't something that I really felt I got a lot of value at. So in the early 2000s, so I graduated, I think it was 98, I took on a job as a director of marketing for a emissions company, and did that for a few years. It's where I learned to do a lot of conferences, a lot of events. In the blockchain space, I've done about 120 events since 2012, including the first expo, or the first conference in Toronto in 2014, which Tracy from Untraceable and I put on and did together. We had about 800 attendees there. But being involved in marketing, which has really helped me with the things I've done recently, I put on a number of events back in the early 2000s, and really learned what it is to bring people together and actually put on good shows. In the 2000s, I spent some time with my family business, which was sliding patio doors. So my dad had a company with him and his brothers, we had about 100 employees. And it's then that I really started learning about business and really understanding what it means to be an entrepreneur, and where I got a lot of my business skills there. Fast forward a bit, the company was sold in 2008, and I had the opportunity there with the sale of that company. My dad said, hey, what do you want to do? And I had the opportunity to think about that for a while, and I said, I want to do something green, and I want to do something technology focused. Something emerging in technology. At that time, there was a lot of green initiatives, solar panels were starting to emerge. And I went into a thing called geothermal drilling. I bought this big drill from Italy, and through a family friend who had a business here in Toronto and in Canada doing heating and cooling systems by drilling into the ground and using the Earth's temperature to heat and cool buildings, thus removing the need for combustion furnaces. So I bought this big drill and I started doing these commercial projects, first in Italy. So I had a drilling company and I was doing IKEA projects in Italy where we would drill hundreds of feet into the ground, hundreds of holes to heat and cool massive IKEA centers. Did a few of those there, brought it to Canada and started doing more commercial projects here, doing retirement centers, doing condominiums. And then I got exposed to my first time that I saw government getting involved with things that really messed stuff up. At that time, there were subsidies for doing green initiatives. This was in the 2010, 2009, 2010. And it was actually due to government involvement that I stopped doing geothermal drilling for two reasons. One is that they started enacting a lot of red tape for doing these drilling projects, which slowed down the construction processes even more than they already were. And the second thing is that they removed incentives that were there for people to use these green systems, these initiatives. Now, I'm not a big fan of government incentives now, but at the time, it made it very difficult for a business owner to continue to do something emerging and something that is actually doing a lot of good because of the issues that the government enacted upon that sector. And even to this day, geothermal drilling, it's a great way to get returns after a few years. It has great paybacks. It removes the need from using any type of fossil fuels. But it's still, because of it's just still not viable for a lot of systems. And it's a struggling business right now, unfortunately, because it does have a lot of opportunity. So I ended up leasing that drill to another company, and at the same time I was in real estate. Not as an agent, but I had properties. From 2005 to 2011, I had some student housing properties at York University. I did quite well with that. That was another venture that I did as an entrepreneur. And after the housing crisis and the financial crisis, 2008, 2009, 2010, I spent about a year or 2 years studying economics. My brother had enticed me to learn about what money is. He was a former politician, counselor, just a little bit north of Toronto here. And he one day said to me, hey, look and really investigate what money is. And that was really the genesis for me of what I've done since then, is I looked into the history of money. I saw and started understanding what sound money is. I started looking at different types of economics. I started seeing and understanding what the Keynesian model of economics was as opposed to the Austrian school of economics, and how one really believes more in free markets, open markets, and the other tries to control things and tries to, that creates situations which leads to problems and leads to booms and bust cycles and leads to the things that we had with the housing crisis in the US, the banking crisis. And I really dug into the Austrian school and really started learning more about limited government involvement and really about entrepreneurship and about free markets. And this was about 2011. I decided to sell my properties here in Toronto, thinking that the same issue was going to happen in the US as it happened here. I was wrong. But still, at the same time, from 2005 to 2011, the prices of my properties really skyrocketed, went up well. So when I sold the properties in 2011, I ended up with a lot of money that I was like, okay, now what am I going to do? So it was the summer of 2012. I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do right now? I've got opportunity. I'm just coming off learning about a new way of thinking about the world, a new way of thinking about money and economics. And that's when I heard about Bitcoin. And I took my decades of my life, which was, the 70s, learning about computers, the 70s and 80s, and then about communications, the internet, entrepreneurship, and I got it that day. I understood how powerful these technologies were going to be. I understood right away that I could now be my own bank. And I understood that the problems that were brought up with, and the booms and bust cycles that we've seen so many times, we saw in the tech bubble, what we've seen with the housing price, all these things are all due to a failed system. A system that relies on trust of other people, it relies on third parties, it relies on centralized systems. And now with the technology behind Bitcoin, that we could now be in control. And I realized that it's a very empowering technology. And I realized that it would enable me to be in control of areas of my life which I had prior had to rely on banks or rely on other systems to do. And since that day that I heard about Bitcoin, I never looked back. And I'm one of the rare people, I think, that grasped the power of it right away because of my history, because of all the elements and things that I've done. And especially with the economics that I've been studying the last couple of years, really understanding. If it wasn't for that, I would not have grasped what Bitcoin was trying to do and what Satoshi was trying to do with Bitcoin. So in 2012, in the summer of 2012, I devoured Bitcoin for weeks. I didn't sleep. I was just absorbing in it, and I just realized this, just like I did with the internet, that this was going to have a meaningful impact on not just the movement of information, but the movement of value. And how it's going to radically change sectors that the internet couldn't change because of the ability to move value now and not just information. Information is great. The internet opened the doors to the movement and flow of information. But even though it did enable better ways to market it, it enabled a lot of things, the disruption that it created really didn't have the power to create the amount of change that Bitcoin and the blockchain technologies are able to do. Anywhere where there's a third party, an intermediary, someone that stands in the middle or helps to facilitate communication and interaction between individuals can and has the opportunity to be replaced by technology. And that's the major thing that I saw in 2012, is that this was going to impact finance. It's going to impact a number of different sectors. And at the time, Bitcoin was everything. There was nothing else really out. There was very, Litecoin. It was all about finance at the time. And in 2012, after digesting and really digging into Bitcoin for weeks, I looked around for others in the community that I could speak to and talk about. And I realized there was nothing here in Toronto. So I decided to start a meetup group in 2012, the Toronto Bitcoin Meetup Group, to bring people together that were passionate about this technology as I was. And I held the first meeting, I think it was October 2012, and there was about 10 people that showed up. And from that meetup, I started doing them on a monthly basis. They started growing. And I started thinking, what am I going to do in this space? Something that I'm really passionate about. What can I do to add value in this space? And one of the things that I recognized very early on was that the wallet, the way that you manage and move digital assets, the interface, and this is going to be my talk for tomorrow, is all going to be about interfaces. But the wallet is very similar to the browser for the internet. The browser is what enables you to see information, move information. It's what the masses use to take advantage of the internet. The wallet is very similar in this blockchain space. You have these assets, you have these ways for individuals to hold the keys to these assets, and then the wallets enable you to move these assets from one person to another. So I understood early on that the wallet is going to be very similar to what the browser is for the internet. It's going to enable people to manage and move value. Manage and move their own value. Value that's not managed by a central server, value that's not managed by a central system. And I started developing wallets, because I knew that was going to be the interface that would unlock and open the door to the masses. So in 2013, started building a a Chrome extension Bitcoin wallet. Again, everything was about Bitcoin at the time. And we launched it in October of 2013. And soon after, a gentleman that I had met at the first meetup that I had put on, Vitalik Buterin, he approached me with a paper for Ethereum. A paper that took the technology that I've been now studying for a year to the next level. Bitcoin's great for moving value, it's great for saying, hey, I can send you something, you now have it, but it's not very smart beyond that. Okay? Bitcoin enables you to have something, you can send it globally, you can send it instantly, very cheap, well, not so much anymore, but very low cost at the time, where at the time it was even for free. You could send Bitcoin for free and it would go through. But what Vitalik proposed in 2013 was something called smart contracts. And his idea was a programmable blockchain that enables you to not just send value, but to actually have code that directs what happens to that value based on information that's fed into it. An example would be an insurance contract that would pay a policyholder based on a certain amount of rain that falls in an area. And it would automatically distribute the policy instantly out to the policyholder without needing to go through a lot of intermediary layers. So when I first heard about Bitcoin, it was about finance, it was about the ability for it to disrupt and change the world of finance. But now, with the idea and concept that Vitalik was bringing forward of Ethereum, it would radically change and impact many other sectors, from law to, as I said, insurance, to the gaming space, to many different things where you generally have third parties that have to facilitate and do things, and now code can replace a lot of those intermediaries and third parties. So my eyes were opened up to much more than just the disruption and change that was going to happen via Bitcoin. And now with Ethereum, I saw, a much wider change of impact in many different sectors. I bet each of you in here are from a wide range of sectors, and some probably finance, but others just, and it's very similar to what we saw with the internet, the change in many, many different areas. This is going to have radical impact on every single sector in the world, and that's why people are excited about the technology. It's democratizing capital raising by people being able to fund projects, these ICOs that are going on right now. So in 2013, I dropped doing the wallets and joined Vitalik and 3 other co-founders, and we started Ethereum, and we started it in Toronto here. So there were myself and Vitalik here from Toronto. There were a couple other 3 others, 2 from the US and 1 from Romania. And at the same time, I was opening up a hub in Toronto called Decentral. And Decentral was a place for my meetups to come to really have a home. And we offered co-working space because we were at the time in coffee shops, getting together, doing local Bitcoin trading, and the prices were going up. And we'd have these 20 people together in a coffee shop. I'm like, I gotta get a space where ideas can flourish and ideas can grow. And the meetups that I've organized over the years have really led to a lot of projects. I really think that those meetups and the launch of Decentral really influenced a lot of what's gone on here in Toronto and here in Canada. I think here in Toronto, the ability to put on a 2,000-person conference in the middle of summer here in Toronto, there's something special there. There's something that's happening that people are descending upon Toronto, and companies are being formed here. And I think a lot of it has to do with the initiation of the meetups and the hub that we set up back in 2013 and 2014. There's a lot of amazing companies with founders that have come out of Toronto here, and there's a lot of attention. We're seeing a lot of VCs come up here wanting to know, hey, what's happening up there in Toronto, because of the amount of growth in this sector that's emerging from here. So in 2013, we launched Ethereum, or we launched the crowd sale, we raised $18 million, as the world started recognizing that this is going to go beyond finance, and that Ethereum has the opportunity to build companies. Ethereum is a platform to create decentralized applications. It's a platform where you can very easily create a company, decide, you can launch a coin, you can decide the metrics of it, you can say, I'm going to make available 5 billion coins, and I'm going to raise capital for it. It's a very easy way for companies to launch, and that's what most of these ICOs are using right now. These initial coin offers are using Ethereum as an infrastructure to base their coin on, because Ethereum provides the security and provides the infrastructure needed so that you don't have to worry about that. So we raised the capital, and we started building a massive community around Ethereum. A lot of it developers, a lot of focused on the technology. And in a very short time, it got recognized, and is recognized now. It's the second leading project to Bitcoin. It's not necessarily a cryptocurrency, even though it has cryptocurrency features. But it was never made to be a cryptocurrency. It was made to be a platform for building decentralized applications on it. Applications that would follow code and execute as they're supposed to, that were decentralized, can't be shut down. Now there's been a little bit of debate whether or not immutability, and how the importance of immutability, as we saw with the whole Ethereum Classic and Ethereum thing, but generally my understanding, what I always thought is these are unstoppable applications that execute as they're supposed to. And they remove the need of a lot of intermediaries and third parties from the mix. I left Ethereum in 2015 for a few reasons, but one was to continue building the interfaces for these technologies. When I built my first Bitcoin wallet, everything was Bitcoin. When Ethereum came about, it opened my eyes to something beyond Bitcoin, something beyond just finance. So I set up building Ethereum wallets as well. And in 2015, started on a journey to create a single interface, multi-platform, multi-currency interface for all these technologies that are emerging. And the project's named JAX. And the goal of it is to really offer a single place that any project that emerges, any technology in this space, has a way to manage and move their value. All of the assets are held by the individual, so we never take custodianship of people's funds. That's one of the tenets of blockchain that I'm very true to, is that I never want to have control or access to your funds or customer funds. And what we do is we've created a back-end infrastructure similar to what I call an AWS infrastructure for blockchains. So we have all the connections to 70-something different currencies right now that we enable individuals to own the keys to their value and be able to move their value via all of our backend infrastructure that we've created. So our interface is on 8 different platforms, so every single device you can pretty much get it on. We give a single 12-word key system where the keys are created on your device. The key to your wallet is created on your local device and enables you to tap into and derive keys to any blockchain technology, any type of messaging system. It all uses a very standard system. But what it means is that you're empowered to be in control of your life. And it's not just your money, it can be your identity, it can be your communications. And it's a very empowering situation that I think is on the way. We've seen what's gone on with Facebook, with Google. We've seen what's happening in the UK, and how people are starting to wake up to things. You know, why are other people monetizing my life? Why are people owning my information? And that information is being stored on central places, and it's being done in a way that it eventually will get out. The problem with centralized systems is that they're prone to attack. You're trying to secure a central place. And these decentralized technologies that have been around now over the last few years, and what we're seeing on the horizon, is going to be a very empowering situation where individuals will be able to be in control of their lives, to own their information, own their data, own their communications. And that's really been the goal of JAX, is to empower people to be in control of their lives. I don't want to hold your money. There's no sign-up process that requires your information. You hold the keys become your identity. Only you have those keys, which means that only you can send and receive the assets that are in your wallet. So our goal is to be the Chrome, the Netscape, if you will, of this entire space. And we do it by empowering people with the tools, and we do it by uniting people together. We figured out a way that we can create value for every project in the ecosystem. Every ICO requires a wallet. Every project pretty much requires a wallet, and it's not something that you want to be doing yourself if you're creating a project. You don't want to be building out infrastructure so you use Ethereum to launch your product. You don't want to be building out wallets, because then you end up in a case where there's 50 browsers out there and you need a different browser in order to see every website. You want to have a single application to do that. So we've got hundreds of partners that we partnered up with, from the largest companies in the blockchain space, from Coinbase to BitPay to Kraken. They're our partners because we can provide value to them. And we also partner up with with projects. So we have a Bitcoin wall, we have an Ethereum wall, we got Litecoin walls. So we've joined all these communities because we provide the interfaces for these technologies, which makes it easier for those communities to flourish and grow. We do it all in a way, again, where we don't hold or have access to customer funds. And we do it in a way that's not generally endorsing projects. It's saying, hey, we want to provide an interface for everybody to connect and everybody to use so that you're not using all these different applications. So that's the goal of Jackson. What I've always been trying to do is create these interfaces, create these technologies that my dad is going to be able to utilize in the future because of the impact these technologies are going to have on everybody's lives. So, I think I pretty much got to wrap it up now. But I'm willing to take some questions. Anybody has any? Yes?
You talked about companies having centralized databases that are insecure. What about a blockchain that's also centralized?
So private blockchains?
Yeah.
I think private blockchains have use cases, but they generally don't take advantage of the greatest benefits of decentralized technologies. So there could be a use case where you have a bunch of, say 5 parties that want to get together, that want to secure their chain, want to be deciding who the rules are of people using it, but that's more of a permission system. And a lot of the value about blockchains or decentralized systems, things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, is that they're permissionless, that anybody can use them. They don't require onboarding, they don't require giving information. So I think there's use cases for it. I'm also the uniting part of what I try to do is also saying there's value in different things, and I'm not hard-lined on any one thing as well. So there are use cases for those technologies, however, they don't really provide the value of what the decentralized systems, the permissionless systems offer. Yes?
So new to listening to this whole discussion. It's fantastic. Very much. Yes.
I can hear you okay.
All right.
I think we're good.
All right. But it's difficult, at least for me, to determine or to filter through what's hype.
I just bought my blockchain box and I'm leaning against that problem, and Magic is taking care of it. What's real, what's near, what's real but immature. And there's a lot of excitement, a lot of money we see. I'm in the mega data center business. We see running into this space, and I'm wondering, sometimes that could almost do more harm than good. We're going to spin up and support things that really aren't baked, and then that creates sort of this negative vacuum of, well, that technology is not going to work, or it's not going to, because CDs are all crashing. So as you look at the landscape, how do you work through and help to educate people? What's not just blockchain technology, but the idea of what's real, what's coming up right now, and can be applied right, in the very near future, as opposed to those things that are going to be in a few years. They're just not as mature, and what's just hype. How do you help
It's
us
super difficult. I have a very difficult time doing it myself. And I've been in this since 2012, and it's gotten to the point that I just stopped reading the news. I've got a business that I run. There's so much, I don't believe more than half of what I read out there. It's very difficult. And when there's money involved, and when people are trying to take people's money and trying to say, hey, here's the next greatest thing here, it's very difficult for the average person to really know what's going on. And that's part of the informed part that we are working on. We've got a thing called Academy coming out, which is really going to be a starting point for people to learn about what's happening here. Because we support hundreds of projects and we support hundreds of companies, we're the ideal people to come and bring an unbiased situation, educational portal for the everyday people. And it's really unfortunate that there's not something out there right now that makes it easy to really wade through all the noise. And it's very unfortunate that I can't say to you, here's where you can actually go to learn what's happening and what is, because even the sites you've got news sites, you've got CoinDesk. I find I don't get much value from this. There's just thousands and thousands of projects that are emerging. It's so difficult to break through and wade through the noise. I think a lot of good things do come up with going to events like this, get out to meetups, get out to local things, and just absorb yourself and connect with people. And you'll start building better of an acumen for what's actually happening here. But I've I invest in a lot of companies in this space, but I started really halting things. It's just so difficult to know what's going to emerge and what's going to break through. And we're very similar to what we had with the dot-com bubble. There's a lot of hype, it's mostly hype, it's mostly noise, and 99.9% of the stuff is not going to carry through. Yes?
So Anthony, building on a bit of that question, as enterprises look at, or kind of traditional aligned businesses look at blockchains, and let's look a little more in the context of a public blockchain like Ethereum. A big piece of understanding that any CIO, CTO of any meaningful company is going to want is what's the roadmap of that technology? How's it governed? What happens if Ethereum goes to proof of stake to my business that's built a bunch of smart contracts on top of that tech? The beauty of traditional businesses doing business with other big businesses like IBM and Microsoft is they know what that product's going to look like in 3 years or 5 years, and have a solid level of communication, terms and conditions, contracting that kind of allows, I know what my environment's going to look like in 3 years. I don't think anybody in this room can tell us what Ethereum's going to look like in 3 years. You're one of the best informed people on the planet about that, but you don't know, right? So I know I manage that as a corporate entity.
So it's Ethereum, if we're using that example, and a lot of these other technologies are just playgrounds right now. They're testing, they're not scalable. They're not going to be able to achieve the things that are going to make things faster, better, cheaper than what you can do right now with a lot of traditional systems. And if we're using Ethereum, for an example, as a roadmap, it's very difficult to look at the leadership of that and to look at the roadmap and say where it's going to be down the road. It's a very developer-focused project, and I think there's a lot of competition out there that's going to really give it a run for the money. But it's a lot of beta testing right now. The things aren't scalable. That's the biggest problem right now. And over the next few years, things will become more scalable, and then the use cases are going to emerge, and they will make things cheaper, faster, better using the technologies. But right now, I wouldn't put my eggs in one basket. One of the reasons that we support wallets for many, many dozens of currencies or dozens of projects is because I don't want to support one thing, because there's more beyond Bitcoin, there's more beyond Ethereum, there's more beyond all the ones that are out there right now. And it's very difficult to say we're going to go just with that one technology at this time, and we're going to bank everything on that. I don't think that's a smart move. Yes?
So my question is...
I'm sorry, they got the mic over there already.
Sorry. So my question is more on marketing and just general data collection. Everything you discussed is great. I totally agree with you. We're looking at Web 2.0. That's basically going to be coming on. So when you discuss, when you were talking about data monetization in other companies like Facebook, Google, Twitter, I'm a media buyer. So I buy media from these companies. So what are your thoughts, and is Jax going to be a part of that in regards to where do you view, how are people going to be monetizing data in the future? And how, with Facebook, Facebook's, has that platform for marketing. That's their service that they're giving out to, where I pay for traffic, right? So looking at Jax and just looking at Web 2.0, what are your thoughts? What are your viewpoints on data monetization?
Sure.
On a personal level.
So the models that are being used right now, I think, have issues with them that can be, that you need to look elsewhere for monetization. I think people are realizing that the models that Facebook is using, they're not very good to the end user, and there's better ways to do things. So the system that we've set up, and I'm going to answer the question about the roadmap that the gentleman asked as well. What we're doing is we provide a single portal, a single interface that connects value-provided services to users. So our partners are businesses and projects and users. So consumers, we're also setting up eventually enterprise services for the backend, so all the blockchains that we offer, so we can offer connections to the blockchains to our enterprise clients as well. So our model is to connect companies with our user base in a single interface, and we make money from the companies. So we don't charge our users anything. We're a free app, free product, and we connect in a single place services that those users want to do, whether it be exchange services. Our goal is to be like the brokerage of blockchain, or brokerage of exchanges, to be the Expedia of exchanges. If you need to pay bills or invoices in different cryptocurrencies, we can facilitate that as well through our partner network. So we provide an infrastructure base, we provide an interface, and we provide a key system that is our value add to companies, users, and projects all wanting to be into our ecosystem. So our way of making money is saying, we don't want your information, don't give it to us. We don't want to hold your money, don't give us that either. You should be in control of that. But we're going to connect you with our partners in a single place, rather than you having to send stuff all around outside of an ecosystem. So we make money from our partners. And let's maybe do 2 more.
Okay, this is going to be more from the story, the old story, the Ethereum story. You said you left in 2015.
Yeah.
One of the reasons you said you wanted to build the interface, the wallet, okay. What are the other reasons, and who are the other 3 people? You didn't name them. Because I always hear a lot of people are becoming, parents of or godparents of Ethereum whenever you go to.
Yeah. So the initial 5 founders were Vitalik Buterin, Mihai Alizé, myself, Amir Chetri, and Charles Hoskinson. Okay, so those are the initial 5. A few months later, we expanded the founder team to include Joseph Lubin, Gavin Wood, and Jeffrey Wilkie. So there was a total of 8, and that was the second tier of if you consider what the founding team was. You had the first 5, then there was 8. And the 8 were the founding team. But there's this is a massive decentralized movement and a massive community, and it grew and grew so fast. You have all these other people. Well, the traditional thing of saying what a founder is and what a founder isn't is kind of blurred, and you have a lot of people, especially since it went very developer-focused afterwards, that look back and say, well, what did you guys really do for this thing? We're the developers. We created the code of this. Well, there's a lot of risk when you start off something like this. I funded the project till the crowd sale, so there was myself taking a risk of putting the money in up to the crowd sale. Joseph Lubin did the same thing. We both were the main funders until we raised the capital. We were the ones that hired the lawyers to make sure that we felt comfortable selling in the US when we did the crowd sale. So it is a massive community. There was a developer takeover that happened in the summer of 2015. And from there, you had Charles leave, and Charles now has started ADA, Cardano, which is a top 10 currency and platform. His goal there was to continue the vision he had as CEO of Ethereum. So he was the CEO of Ethereum at the time, and he got ousted, unfortunately. What happened was that it turned into a much more developer-focused project, and the business people that set the things up, went on to do other things, and that's what happened. So I went in to continue doing what I'm doing. Joseph went to start Consensus, which is the largest Ethereum-based company on the planet. Charles did a Cardano. I'm continuing on with Decentral and doing my Jackson. So it was a number of things. One was also that it was turned into a foundation. It was supposed to be a for-profit entity. That didn't happen. So one thing I've learned in this space is that things change every single day, and you have to adapt and always keep rolling with it. And some of the reasons why larger companies are having trouble holding on to blockchain teammates is, you see the struggles of companies that can't appeal to what a startup is in the space, and they're losing their teams to these ICO projects. And it's a real big problem for larger companies right now. It's very difficult to maintain and hold on to blockchain people and keep them enthused because they're very difficult and hard to change. They have older infrastructures and systems which make them slower to adjust and adapt, and that's very difficult in a space that's changing rapidly every day. So the reasons were I wanted to continue building not just for Ethereum, not just for Bitcoin, but for all the technologies, provide a platform or win for everybody, and also with some of the things that went on there, but no hard feelings with anything. I support Ethereum. Ethereum is in our wallet. It's the second leading, it's the second most activity that happens in our wallet is on Ethereum. And I'm a big fan and help with that community, and we provide services to Ethereum. I'll take one more.
I am starting a project, and I'm in a room with people who are apparently investing in projects. When you look at a project, and I'm an old business guy, I have red flags and green flags. What are your red flags and green flags when you examine a project?
So it's changed over time. One of the things I look for, I usually get brought a project by people in my network that I trust. And if I can look at the team and see what they've done in the past, that's usually a good signal for me. And if I know them, it's even great to see what they've accomplished in the past. The idea itself is important. The The ability for them to hire the devs that they're going to need to carry it out is super difficult. It's very hard to find qualified infrastructure developers out there right now in blockchain. It's very difficult. It's such a new space that it's hard to find and corral people that have the skills needed, and that's very difficult. So the idea is super important. The people behind the project is important. The industry they're in and what it is they're trying to achieve is very difficult. And what is their experience, and do they understand the community and understand, have they been in long enough to really grasp what's going on here? Because I've been in 6 years, it's almost 6-7 years now, and it really takes a long time to understand what's going on. And it's very difficult for you to get into the space after a couple months and then try to start a company and try to carry that out, unless you have people behind you that have done it before in this space and then be able to support you there.
Red flags.
Red flags are inexperienced teams, ideas that I've heard time and time again of low-hanging fruit that doesn't work, and it takes time for someone to understand why it doesn't work. So a lot of people go to early things of, I want to start an exchange, I want to start an ATM business, I'll be printing money, it's very easy to do. Well, there's a reason why those things are very difficult to do. There's a lot of regulatory hurdles with things. There's issues, technology issues that people don't understand, and they spend a lot of time doing projects that I can look at it and go, don't even bother doing. That's why we looked at that back in 2012, and that doesn't work for this or this reason. That hasn't been solved yet. So a lot of it is not having the acumen or knowledge of the space to carry out what they're going to need to do, and that's about the experience part of things. So, yeah, I mean, if they haven't done anything before, if there's a ton of other people doing that, trying that type of idea, I suggest speaking or getting to know someone that's been around for a long time in the space that can help you navigate those waters and identify which ones make sense and which ones don't. All right, thank you very much.